Hey there, welcome to Braintrain. We are so glad you're here. At Braintrain, we create courses that aim to help learners explore their world no matter what their learning background is. Normally, we meet in small groups with a conductor, similar to myself, and we talk about things like creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving in super fun ways. Now, today is going to be just a little bit different as we explore this in a different way. This is an anytime course, which gives you the chance to see our teaching style, meet one of our teachers, and go on an educational adventure, which I hope you really enjoy. Now, today, you're going to meet our friend Wendy. She is going on a camping trip with her friends, and they've got some issues that are coming in. There's actually a mystery that we're going to try to solve along the way. So make sure you're prepared. Now, for a brain train course, it's usually a good idea to have paper and pencil nearby. Make sure you're nice and comfy and get set because we are about to embark on this adventure with Wendy. Are you ready? I am. Let's get going. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and follow Wendy on this epic camping trip. She's got a little bit of a task ahead of her to prepare. Have you ever been on a camping trip? There's a lot you need to prepare ahead of time. Hence our topic today, be prepared. Let's take a look at Wendy and her friends as they get ready to get started on this trip. All right. So her friends are Gwen, Ryan, and Steve, and they are packing up. We're going to learn about their itinerary. They're going through Upper Verde Forest, Skyview Fields, and then eventually to their campsite. And first, they actually need to pack before they even get in the car. So let's check in with them and see how they're doing.
Hey, my name is Wendy. Come along with my friends and I on an epic camping trip. You'll meet my friends Gwen, Ryan, and Steve. We'll start by packing up my backpack and then we'll embark on our adventure. We'll start with a walk through Upper Verde Forest and then we'll take a stroll through Skyview Fields before hiking to set up the campsite. Oh, and by the way, you might hear my friends talk about Bigfoot, especially Steve. I think he's kind of crazy, but there have supposedly been some Bigfoot sightings around lately. More on that later. Let's get started. Time to pack up for the big camping trip. I could really use some help packing my backpack. I want to make sure I have everything I need. I haven't been on a camping trip before, so I could use some tips.
There's some boxes of camping supplies over here.
We won't have room for everything in the backpack, so we'll have to choose carefully what we think is most important.
Don't forget about Bigfoot. There have been some sightings recently. I think he's really out there, guys, and I want to prove it. In our backpack, we need to pack up some things that can be used to collect Bigfoot evidence. I don't think you're right, Steve, but we'll get what we need to collect some evidence if you really think that you'll find some.
I think we can prove your Bigfoot theory wrong, Steve, but we'll keep an eye out for evidence. First, let's get packing.
All right, Wendy is correct. We need to get started by packing. So as you can see, we've got quite the trip, quite the hike ahead of us. And that means we're going to carry everything we have on our backs. In order to make that a little bit more comfortable, we need to make sure we pack efficiently and plan ahead for anything we might need in terms of food preparation, where we're sleeping tonight, safety, sanitation. All these things are things we need to take into account. So let's go ahead and check in on our items that we need to pack. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff that we found that might help us on this trip, but we need to prioritize. We need to try to figure out what we actually need. So here's the idea. We've got large, medium, and small items. Obviously, we can't take everything, so we need to figure out what is going to fit and what we really need. Here's the breakdown. We've got large, medium, and small, two large items, three medium items, and five small items. Go ahead and take a moment and take a look at these items. Let's look at the large items. Left to right, friends. We've got a sleeping bag, we've got a first aid kit, a frying pan, a pot, and a net. The second row, that medium category, we've got rope, a hand trowel or shovel, a teddy bear, a headlamp, a flashlight, water bottle, a camera, a lantern. Remember, Bigfoot is maybe out there, according to Steve, so maybe that's why the camera's there. And then the small items. Let's take a look. We've got some matches, sunscreen, a water purifying straw. It's kind of a cool invention. Sunglasses, a spoon, a banana, a toothbrush, soup, protein bar, a candy bar, soda, and a tape measure. Now, I'm going to give you a second. Remember, this is your video. So if you ever need to pause, take a break, or just step away for a moment, totally fine. Go ahead and hit pause, write down your items, and we'll start back up in just a moment. So, how did it go? What does your list look like? When we're thinking about some of the things we might need, we definitely want to take into account lighting and, being able to see in the dark. By chance we're not able to create a bonfire or a campfire in time. So some light source is probably good. Maybe you had one of those in there. Thinking about water, keeping ourselves hydrated is also important, but we do need to take into account the purity of the water. So maybe that straw or even the pot to boil the water to then put in our water bottle. Hopefully you thought about your sleeping arrangements or even creating a space that's safe and warm. So maybe you wanted to bring that sleeping bag or kind of having a trowel if you needed to dig out somewhere to sleep in a safer space. That might be helpful. And fire starting equipment, things like those matches would be really helpful. Something to take into account there. Now, we mentioned Bigfoot. What did you bring for Bigfoot? Anything in particular? All right, so you may be saying, the camera, we need the camera. Totally. The camera might be a good way to get evidence of Bigfoot if we happen to find some. So that's a good one. What do you think about that net? Do you think that net is going to help for Bigfoot? Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Bigfoot would not be willing to be caught by that net. It's a little too small for him. So let's go ahead and push on. Now, as we look at this array of items, is there anything that stands out as unnecessary straight away? All right, you may be saying things like the teddy bear or even, I don't know, maybe soda or candy if you're into eating healthy. However, those things can be helpful as they're conveniently packaged, right, when you're hiking. So weighing the pros and cons, obviously we want to be healthy, but at the same time, we may need nourishment that way. All right, which items immediately stand out as necessary? What did you go for first? All right, so it sounds like maybe we're thinking about fire starting ideas, things like the matches, perhaps water related things like the water purifying straw or even the pot, perhaps the first aid kit in order to keep ourselves safe and doing well as we go along, as there may be some bumps and bruises. Now, here at Brain Train, we like to take things up a notch. And here's my first twist I'm going to throw at you, all right? We've got a little bit of a twist. What happens if the rules get changed a little bit? Would your decision stay the same or would it change? So if you could swap one large item for two more medium or three more small items, would you change your answer? What would you swap out? Take a second, pause, make any of those switches if you need to, and then we'll come back and discuss a little bit. All right, did you choose any new items? All right, what were they? Maybe immediately in our first round, you thought about your comfort more than your needs. Wants and needs. Anybody ever hear about needs and wants? Yeah, we need to take those into account in order to stay safe, in order to stay fed and hydrated. Super important to take those ideas into account. Maybe did we forget about Bigfoot? Maybe we forgot our camera. Perhaps we did some shuffling around to get that camera in our backpack. All right. Well, as we move forward, I want you to go ahead and make note of what you decided to bring. Then we can take that into account later on as we encounter more challenges. Let's get going. All right. It looks like our hike has begun. We're heading through the forest. Let's check in with Wendy.
So we're finally on the big hike through Upper Verde Forest. It's a long hike, so that can only mean playing some games to pass the time. Ryan always has a game up his sleeve. Let's see what he has for us. Oh, and remember, keep an eye out for signs of Bigfoot, okay?
Okay, Wendy. All right, here we are. We've got Ryan's game that he has come up with for us. And we'll talk a little bit about how we might go about solving this later. But for now, let's just get started on playing. We love a good game around here. So, first, we're going to read through these 4 clues, and then we're going to figure out which color leaf goes in which circle. If you want, you can recreate this tree and the circles on your paper so that you can take some notes as we read along. Let's take a look at these clues. Number 1, the orange leaf is on the left of the red leaf. The green leaf is not under the yellow leaf. The yellow leaf is not next to the orange leaf. And the red leaf is centered above the brown and green leaves. Take a second and work on this yourself. If you're ready, go ahead and do that on your own. If you need a little bit more support, let's keep working on this together. Now, as you read through these clues, is there any clue that sticks out as super helpful to you straight away? Number 1's not super helpful. Number 2, number 3, same. And number 4 is kind of where I land. Is that where you landed too? All right, the red leaf is centered above the brown and green leaves. Now, there's some key words in there. Any words that help you figure some things out? You might be saying centered and above. All right. So if we think that red leaf is centered and above the other leaves, we might put it here, right in the middle on the top row. Is this where you had it? Perfect. That's exactly where we want it. Now, the red leaf is centered above the brown and green leaves. Does that tell us anything else we might need to make a note of? Yeah, brown and green are going to be on the bottom. We just don't know which side yet. So let's keep reading. We can go ahead up to the top for number 1. Let's take a look there. The orange leaf is on the left of the red leaf, which would put the orange leaf. Yeah. Are you going like this? Which one is left? Yeah, the one that makes an L is left. Very good. So let's go ahead and put our orange leaf here. Fantastic. Go ahead to number 2. The green leaf is not under the yellow leaf. Do we know where the yellow leaf is? We do, just by process of elimination. But let's read number 3 too. The yellow leaf is not next to the orange leaf. Where's the yellow leaf going to be? Just confirmation here. Yeah, it's going to be right over here. Fantastic. So we've got orange, red, and yellow. Now, where are brown and green? As you can see, if we look at number 2, the green leaf is not under the yellow leaf. That would put the green leaf under brown. Yep, green would go over here, and the brown would go over under the yellow leaf. Perfect, very nice. Now, if you're coming back and you're just checking your answers, check to see that you've got all these leaves placed correctly. And then let's talk about how we actually did this. So if you were following along, it kind of felt like we were taking away options as we went, right? We also had some clues along the way. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple fancy words. These are deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. These are, like I said, just fancy words for ways that we're going to solve problems, ways that we're going to think about problems. Let's start with deductive. Think about your math class. In math, sometimes we add and sometimes we subtract. Deduct simply means to subtract, to take away options. So if we look at number 4, the red leaf is centered above. That word above already took away the option of red being on the bottom. Perfect. So there are these little subtractions that we can make along the way. That's deductive reasoning. You can write that down if you want. The other one is inductive reasoning. Inductive means we're going to take some of the clues that we've gathered and then put them into use to make a generalization about something or come to a conclusion about something. So we did this maybe when we thought red leaf is centered above the brown and green leaves. Oh, that means brown and green are on the bottom. We just don't know where yet. So we've got a piece of information, a clue there. All right. I think you're ready for the next level. Are you ready to step it up? Let's go. Let's go. Ryan came prepared with another game for us. So take a look. Ryan has this other tricky deductive thinking game for us. And as they continued on their hike, Wendy, Gwen, and Steve, and Ryan, they took a break to draw some trees that they saw on their trip. Can you figure out who drew which tree? So as we go over to this grid, you see that we've got 4 types of trees and 4 people. Each of them drew one type. There are no repeats, so we're going to again use those clues below, 1, 2, 3, in order to use deductive and inductive reasoning to figure this out. Go ahead, pause the video. I'm going to challenge you to do this one on your own this time, and we'll see what you come up with. Then we'll come back, click play, and we'll start and see how it goes. All right, time to read through these clues. Wendy did not draw the poplar tree. Does that give us anything to work with? Yes, it does. We'll get there. We'll get there. Ryan helped another student draw the giant sequoia. Also gives us some information. 2 of the students thought it would be fun to draw trees that started with the first letter of their names. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use check marks and X's. You can choose what you want, but I'm going to go ahead and use this X to represent not a possibility. So Wendy did not draw the poplar tree. Wendy, you did not draw the poplar tree. Let's go on to number 2. Ryan helped another student draw the giant sequoia. What does this tell us about what Ryan drew? It does tell us some information. It's not super direct though. All right, Ryan did not draw the giant sequoia. He helped somebody else. All right, very nice. Add our X in there. Now, go back to number 3. 2 of the students thought it would be fun to draw trees that started with the first letter of their names. Anything stand out here? All right, Gwen, and our giant sequoia both start with G. So as we click our check mark there, we know that Wendy and Steve and Ryan, none of them drew the giant sequoia, just Gwen, and Gwen did not draw the sycamore, poplar, or maple. Perfect. Now let's go back. We've got another student, 2 of them, who drew the tree that starts with the first letter of their first name. Who else would that be? You got it, Steve. So let's go ahead and add in, this is the fun part, right? Where we get to, there we go. Check all those off. Now, as we look at this, there's only one option left for Ryan. What did Ryan draw? Poplar, perfect. And what did Wendy draw? Maple. Again, we are taking away options and that leaves us with our answer here. Nice work. Very good. So as we look over this grid, which clues were the most helpful and which clues were the least helpful? Yeah, I think that last one, number 3, is the most helpful. Do you agree? Yeah, it's the most helpful for me because it gives me 2 answers pretty much straight away and allows me to add in all those X's, allowing me to visualize what's left. What am I working with in terms of options? So something helpful, something to think about as we're solving problems. How can you take away possibilities that are incorrect? All right, my friends, let's go ahead and check in. It looks like Steve has some information for us. Let's check in with Steve on Bigfoot.
Wait, go back to the forest scene. Did you see that too? I'm pretty sure I saw a tree move, and maybe even some prints. Take a closer look. Let's make sure to use some things from our backpack to collect evidence if possible.
All right, did you see that? It looks like there were some footprints and some tree movement back there. So let's do a little check-in on Bigfoot here. Have you seen any evidence? Yeah, if you saw in that last video, we'll go ahead and keep an eye out in the future as well. There were some footprints and we saw the trees moving a bit. So how could we collect this evidence? Do you have any tools in your backpack that would be helpful? Right, if you made room for that camera, we might be able to use that to take video or pictures, photos of the footprints or the trees moving. Awesome. Now, how would Steve use that evidence to try to prove that Bigfoot is out there? Right, he might look at the size of the footprint and say, this is not a human footprint. This is too big. It must be Bigfoot, right? Good. And the trees moving? Yeah, he might use that to say that Bigfoot is walking around in the forest. Perfect. All right, now Wendy, she's a little skeptical about Bigfoot, right? So how could Wendy try to prove that Bigfoot isn't out there? Okay, she might come up with alternative explanations, right? Maybe the wind was blowing. Maybe there's another animal in the bushes and the trees are moving because of those animals moving. Maybe there are other people walking around in the woods and they happen to move at the same time. Okay. Now, what about the footprints for Wendy? What might she say? Yeah, this is going to take more imagination. I mean, possibly they're human footprints, they're just really big. Maybe it's a type of animal. Maybe these are Bigfoot boots. I don't know. That might be a fun invention, right? To leave a Bigfoot footprint. But all that to say, there are multiple explanations as to why this would not be Bigfoot. And Steve might be reaching a bit to try to prove. But the game is not over yet. Let's keep going and see what happens next. Keep your eyes peeled for more Bigfoot clues. Now we're going to move on. The group has hiked all the way to cloud gazing. This is a cloud gazing moment in the meadow, all right? They're taking a break. They're going to relax and go ahead and look up at the clouds for a bit. Take a look.
After all that packing and hiking, we finally made it to Skyview Fields. We quickly saw why it was called that. We took a break to relax and look up at the clouds. Have you ever been cloud gazing?
Have you? So cloud gazing is a fun little pastime, something you can use to pass the time really as you're out in the fields. Perhaps you got a minute where you can sit down and rest. You look up at the clouds and see if you see anything. See if you can find a shape, maybe an animal, maybe it looks like a building of some sort. That's up to you. It's all about your perspective and how creative you want to get with it. So, we're going to take a look at some clouds. You ready for this? Take a look at these first cloud formations. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you look at these, I want you to take a second and just reflect on it. Okay? What pictures could you see in the clouds? And one trick is if something doesn't appear to you right away, maybe turning your head, taking a different perspective, going sideways, going upside down, having a different perspective on these clouds can help. And trying to come up with ideas as to what you could relate them to. Think about books, characters in books, animals, buildings, like I mentioned. Go ahead and pause right here. Take a look at these clouds. Feel free to imagine for a moment, and we'll come back and chat about it in just a second. Awesome. What did you find? So maybe you found some animals. I know when I was looking at number 4, it kind of looks like Pegasus, you know, that flying horse. Yeah, but it looks a little bit bigger. So it kind of looks like a flying pig to me. I don't know. Also, when we look at number 1, I can see kind of an airplane shape, the body, the wings coming out. Did you find anything different there? Nice. Well, I hope you were able to see something. And if not, feel free to pause for a bit longer and reflect on this. But it's time to level up one more time. Ready? All right, let's go on to our round 2 of cloud gazing. All right, here, I'm going to challenge you to find something in a certain category. Okay? Take a look at these cloud formations, a little bit different than the first. And what we're going to do is try to find things in these categories. Something like food, a wild animal, a pet, a cartoon character, or a person doing an action, or even something in nature. Take a minute, reflect on what you see here, see if you can find something in those categories. Again, food, a wild animal, pet, a cartoon character, a person doing an action. Pause the video and reflect. What do you see in these cloud formations? All right, what do you see? I know when I was looking at number 2, it kind of looks like a waterfall to me, like all the part that's coming toward us, the foreground, that kind of looks like a lake, and the rest looks like a waterfall. Yeah, the bottom left, number 3, kind of looks like, again, another airplane, but perhaps if we're going for a wild animal category, this might be a falcon or a bird of some sort. Yeah. Anything else? I see on number 4 that left on the left side, it kind of looks like something is going to eat something on the right side. Kind of looks like a mouth that's open, maybe like a dragon kind of shape. All right. Well, I hope you found something cool. You're welcome again to pause and stay here for a second. turn your head, look upside down, look sideways, see if you can find something else in these cloud formations. But on this round, we've got a level 3 for you. Now, while we were cloud gazing, it looks like some of the contents of our backpack spilled out. Oops, what a mess. So before we repack, let's use some of our creativity skills to classify them into as many categories as possible. That's a challenge. So take a look. It's the same. They are the same items as we packed in. So you already know what they are. You've seen them before. Take a look. What categories could you put them in? Remember, we've got a sleeping bag, a first aid kit, a frying pan, a pot, a net, a rope, a hand shovel or a trowel, a teddy bear, a headlamp, a flashlight, a water bottle, a camera, a lantern. We've also got matches, sunscreen, a water purifying straw, sunglasses, a spoon, a banana, toothbrush, soup, protein bar, candy bar, soda, and tape measure. So all those items, see if you can put them into categories. Now, just a reminder, what should we take into account when we sort the items? I would recommend using your 5 senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. What do these items look like, taste like, smell like, feel like, sound like? What could you add on your paper and how many categories could you put them into? Take a minute, pause the video, and work on that. We'll come back in just a second. All right, how did it go? How many categories did you get? All right, I hope you're shouting a number at me. Now, here's the challenge, my friends. You have done a great job. However, I'm going to challenge you even further. That's right. I'm going to ask you to really challenge yourself and push yourself. Can you come up with 3 more categories? Again, I'll remind you about those 5 senses. What do things look like, smell like, taste like, feel like, sound like? Do they make a noise or are they silent? All these things are things that we could take into account. So I'm going to push you. Come up with 3 more categories. You can do it. Let's see what you've got. All right. Well, if you were able to come up with more, I applaud you. Sometimes we get to the end of a challenge and we think, I'm done. But if we can push a little bit more, often we can squeeze just a bit more creativity out of ourselves than we think. You can surprise yourself sometimes. I know when I was working on this, I thought of taking into account the purpose of the item, if it was for food prep or keeping clean or healthy, that sort of thing. Also, the materials that these objects are made from, whether they're natural or man-made, maybe the texture of the item, and then also thinking about their cost. Perhaps some things are rather costly and other things, they don't cost much at all. Taking that into account might be helpful too. All right, my friends. Well, we have packed back up. We are hiking toward our campsite, and it looks like Wendy has an update for us. Let's check in with her.
Cloud gazing was awesome, and we finally finished the hike to camp. But setting up camp isn't going as planned. There's so much to do, and we just can't figure this out. Steve is trying to tell everyone what to do. Gwen can't figure out how to set up the tents. Ryan is hungry and doesn't want to help at all until he gets some food. And I'm just frustrated. Have you ever worked on a team before? Please help us.
All right, Wendy's asking, have you ever worked on a team before? Now, I have that same question for you. Think about a team that you were a part of that worked really well together. This could be a sports team, a club that you're a part of, maybe a group of friends at school, maybe even your family. Maybe your family works together at times. And so thinking about these different groups, choose one of them. And I want you to think about one thing that made your group work well together. Go ahead and write that down. Pause the video, write it down, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about teamwork. All right, what did your team do? Perhaps your team communicated well. They were able to say, hey, I'm going to work on this, you work on this. Maybe you were communicating about what you were going to delegate, divide up, to have different people work on different parts of the project. Maybe you are focused on a goal. If this is a sports team, perhaps your soccer team is working to play to win a game and you're trying to score the other team's goal. Obviously, each person has their own position. They know the goal. You're working together with unity. That's really important. What about in a family? Perhaps your family works well together, sharing. Maybe your friend group shares things when someone needs something. Maybe you forgot your pencil at school, somebody shared it with you. These are the things that we're looking for in a good team. So let's check in with our campground friends to see what they're working on and how we can help. Take a look. As we saw, we've just arrived at the campground and we need to come up with a list of tasks that need to be done. So take a look at this. We've got 5 tasks that need to be done and what should be done first. Maybe a little bit of prioritization. What's urgent? What's not urgent? What's necessary in terms of getting other things done? Perhaps looking at the sequence. All of these things we should take into account. Next one, we should decide who's responsible for getting each of these things done. So how would you decide? How would you pick who is responsible for each of these things? Next, we might need to think about what good teamwork would look like in this situation. If we don't see it right now, what would it look like? Set some of those expectations, set some of those goals for ourselves as we work toward this great outcome of getting camp set up in time. So I'll go ahead and have you pause. Remember, darkness is setting in, the sun has set, and we need to get this done quickly. Take a moment, pause the video, and write down your ideas for these questions. All right, what did you come up with? Perhaps some of the ideas that you had for these tasks have to do with getting a fire started. Have you ever started a fire, a campfire? Yeah, we need things like kindling. These are things that catch fire quickly and easily to get our fire started. So we need to go looking for those, perhaps using a headlamp or a flashlight. We also need firewood. Hopefully it's dry, right? We need to light that fire and get started on cooking something. So we can't cook until we have a fire. Maybe that plays into the order. We also need to get our tent set up, get our sleeping situation squared away. Perhaps we need to find a water source if we're running low on water. All of these are tasks that might need to be done. We need to figure out the order though. What order would you put them in? What should go first? If you said the campfire, which I hope you did, absolutely. This is something that definitely needs to be done first for our safety, for visibility, for cooking. So that's a fantastic first step. You might also consider the tent so that you can keep your things safe and dry in case it's raining. And something to consider doing last. If you've ever been camping near bears, you know you need to keep your food up and away from your campsite so that bears don't come wandering in looking for a snack. So that may be putting your tree bag up, finding your food, putting it all in one place, and getting it up in a tree. That may be the last thing that you do. So we've got kind of a sequence here. Now, figuring out who's responsible for getting these tasks done. What would you decide there? There are lots of ways that we could do this. Could be somebody who's good at it, somebody who knows how to do it, somebody who's excited to do it, they want to do it, something that they've had experience in. There's a few different ways we could divvy these responsibilities up, but we need to get all of it covered. And sometimes that means making a little bit of a sacrifice for what you may want to do for what you need to do. Finally, what would good teamwork look like in this situation? In my opinion, I think it would be a campsite that's set up before it gets too dark. Also, I like to eat. I don't like to be hungry. And so getting some food in our bellies before we're too tired and hungry would be a good idea. So I think kind of checking those 2 boxes would look like good teamwork outcomes that would happen from the situation. Now, we're going to go ahead and check in with them. It looks like everything is set up well, and they're actually wrapping up their trip. So let's check in with Wendy and see how it went.
The epic camping trip ended up amazing, thanks to you. We packed up, hiked the forest, gazed at some clouds, and even managed to set up camp. The next day, we had the time of our lives. We saw mountains, waterfalls, went fishing, and had a picnic. And what do you think? Did Steve get his Bigfoot evidence after all? I'll leave that one for you to decide.
All right, we got to check in with Steve on Bigfoot. So, what evidence in all did we see today? I think you may be telling me footprints and trees. I would agree with you. We had those two pieces of evidence. Now, do you think this is enough evidence to prove Bigfoot is real? Okay. Now, when we think about proving Bigfoot is real, we need some irrefutable evidence. Do we have that? Depends on if we got a good video of him or good photos of those footprints, perhaps. But these are things that we need to take into account for our third question. Is it easier to prove or disprove that Bigfoot is real? At the moment, it looks like it might be easier to disprove just because we don't have any hard video evidence of Bigfoot or even the experience of maybe talking or interacting with Bigfoot. So maybe we're lacking that. What kind of evidence would be the most convincing and what would be the least convincing? Least convincing? Sure, it might be those things that have other explanations, things like the trees moving, right? The footprints, they may be a little bit more convincing, right? We don't have as much of an explanation for them. So the best evidence would be video or even a conversation, or maybe even bringing Bigfoot back with you and saying, hey, we found Bigfoot, here he is. Who knows? Sky's the limit, guys. So, as we've seen, Steve's friends are pretty skeptical about Bigfoot. Here's your chance to help your choice of side. You may help Steve's last-ditch effort to convince his friends that Bigfoot is in fact real, or you can take the position of Steve's friends. Remember, persuasion is most effective when you understand your opponent's perspective. So make sure we take into account this evidence and how we can present it in the most logical way. Now, when you're putting this argument together, I'd like you to put yourself in each person's shoes. Help Wendy try to convince Steve once and for all that Bigfoot is not real. So, depending on what your first argument was, that Bigfoot is real or Bigfoot is not real, I also want you to take into account the opposition. What points would the opposition bring up? And how would you respond to these points? Try to imagine their questions, their skeptical points, things that they would say, hey, but what about this? I see your point, but talk to me about this. Go ahead and work on that. Pause the video, and then we'll come back and check out one more last-ditch effort from Steve. Got your points? Got your arguments? Awesome. Now, remember, persuasion is really most effective when we take into account our opposition's points and try to connect with them on those. We can either show leadership in recognizing that the other team may have a better point and switching sides, or we could try to do our best to convince our opposition that we actually have the right point of view and this is what we have to back it up. Now, we're going to move on to Steve's next last-ditch effort. Steve apparently has hidden supplies in the car. Before we left, he packed some of these extra things in order to create a trap. We're going to build a trap to catch Bigfoot. So, in just a moment, you've got these supplies at your disposal. On your paper, you can look at things like a megaphone, a large net, a sheet, a blanket, a net with a handle, a rope, a chain, a fishing rod, tape, stake, clothespins, a carabiner, and wood. How would you use these supplies to create a trap? Remember, Bigfoot is pretty big. So take that into account. Do your best. Have fun. Pause the video and go ahead and design your trap for Bigfoot. How'd it turn out? Do you think it'll hold up under Bigfoot's weight? Did you have some bait in there? Perhaps you used the stake as bait? Now, as you were doing this, were there any other supplies that you wish you would have had? Possibly. Maybe you thought, oh, I want this, or I wish I had that. Why did you wish for those supplies? Sometimes we're looking for things to address a specific problem. For example, Bigfoot's size. I don't know how strong this net is, so maybe we would need multiple nets or nets with a certain material that can withstand a lot of weight. Maybe we need a different Fishing rod. That fishing rod might not hold that much weight, so we might need something a little bit sturdier. Perhaps we use the wood instead and figure out a way to make it hold that weight in case we're able to use those. Now, you did such a good job on today's class. I hope our class today showed you just how important these brain train skills are. We practiced persuasion and strategy as we were packing our bags. We used creativity as we were cloud gazing and coming up with different ways to categorize some of those tools. We used critical thinking in the forest with deductive and inductive reasoning. And we looked at collaboration when we were setting up camp. These skills will definitely come in handy. Have you ever been on a camping trip before? Did you have to practice collaboration or any of these other skills like creativity and problem solving? I look forward to reading your response. You can leave it in the comments down below. I hope we'll see you in another brain train class soon where we'll tackle another skill together, but hopefully we won't be chasing Bigfoot. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you out there.